So this is the second of two talks on the Anapanasati Sutta and the concluding talk of our Vipassana structured study. The first half of this sutta, the Buddha teaches how to apply the concentration developed through jhana meditation to different themes of the Dhamma, using examples of accomplished monks to show how that's done. In other words, it's just a very practical and direct teaching on how to apply concentration within the different themes of the Dhamma. And the Buddha touched on the Eightfold Path and the four foundations of mindfulness, the five faculties and the four strengths. And I won't go over those again, but those are, because they're new terms, they sound a little bit esoteric, but they're just practical explanations and examples of the strength, the skills that we develop through an authentic Dhamma practice. And we did finish right about the halfway point. If you haven't heard Saturday's talk, I really encourage you to go and listen to it, because it leads into this. But again, understand that the Anapanasati Sutta is not a teaching on how to meditate, even though that's usually how it's interpreted, which is just another distraction. It's how to apply Dhamma practice moment by moment. This next section, the Buddha is teaching us about the 7 factors for awakening that are developed through authentic Dhamma practice, through jhana meditation as the foundation. The Buddha's words: "And how are the 4 foundations of mindfulness appropriately developed so as to bring the 7 factors of awakening to their culmination?" So those that have been here long enough realize that the 4 foundations are just that. They're the foundation for everything we do in Dhamma practice, rooted in jhana. In other words, the beginning of the 4 foundations of mindfulness is instructions on how to appropriately develop jhana within meditation. Be mindful of the breath in the body, be mindful of feelings and thoughts arising and passing away, and be mindful of the present quality of mind, without the need for any of that to be any different than it is. We're simply present with that. That is the establishment of the foundations of mindfulness, and then we can apply that mindfulness, that refined mindfulness, in deepening concentration to other important themes of the Dhamma. Whenever a monk or a nun or just a Dhamma disciple remains focused on the body, free of distraction, ardent, alert, and mindful, while putting aside craving and distress with reference to the world. That last line, putting aside craving and distress with reference to the world, simply means you're not entangled in the world. You're putting aside that would otherwise give rise to stress and suffering from your entanglement, from clinging to people, events, thoughts, and ideas that are attached to the world. Putting aside craving and distress with reference to the world, their mindfulness is now steady and continuous. We develop a mindfulness, a quality of mindfulness that is steady and continuous, which means there's no disturbance in that mindfulness. It's another description of an awakened human being, and that establishment of ongoing equanimity. No matter what's occurring, we don't react to it. Why? Does anybody know why we stop reacting? There's nothing personal. The foundational and most profound teaching that the Buddha teaches is that there's nothing in the world that can be seen as personal and should be taken as personal. He teaches us how to see the world in an accurate way, which is completely impersonal. Remember the Vipassana Sutta, keeps coming up. By the way, the most researched term that gets people to becomingbuddha.com is the Vipassana Sutta. And what do we learn? What's the most profound teaching? Whatever's occurring, this is not me, this is not mine, this is not myself. We're simply present for life as life occurs. And that's the great reward. And imagine that. Think about that just a little bit. To be actually present with your life as your life unfolds without the need for anything to be any different. That's the essence of developing a dispersonal, dispassionate way of living in the world. When mindfulness is steady and continuous, then mindfulness as a factor for awakening becomes directed, meaning we're developing it. When mindfulness is steady and continuous, it forms the foundation for the culmination of its development. And again, the Buddha is not talking, we talk about this often, he's not talking about some generalized or modern type of mindfulness, which is subtly cruel in a way, that we should be mindful of everything that's occurring. We should be mindful of everything that's occurring, but without the proper foundation and the proper tools, meaning a right jhana practice and the framework of the Eightfold Path, there's no possible way. We'll simply be grasping after mindfulness and think that we're not doing it properly, when it's simply the wrong teaching. The Buddha didn't teach that type of generalized mindfulness. He taught a very specific type of mindfulness, and it's to be mindful of the factors of the Eightfold Path, and really nothing else. Because if we develop that type of refined mindfulness, then we will be seeing ourselves in relation to the world from right view, the culmination of the Buddha's path. Did you ever?
Just something that made me think of, that quality of mind which becomes steady and continuous is not mindfulness of every single thing that arises in consciousness.
Yeah.
It's
just the opposite, isn't it?
It's the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah.
The mind becomes still calm by not reacting to every single thing that comes into the mind.
Yeah.
So that allows for a steady and continuous quality of mind to develop.
Thank you for that, Matt. What Matt's describing, what the Buddha's describing, is mindfulness of just one thing at a time. What's occurring? And how often, I mean, I hear it all the time. People start this practice because they can't control their mind. They talk about this monkey mind. Every time they sit down, their mind is just going. Well, that's the opposite of this. That's not mindfulness. Even if you think that you're being mindful of all the things that are occurring in your mind, it's just a distracted type of mindfulness. It's not refined mindfulness. Refined mindfulness is just focus on one thing. My life as my life unfolds, without the need for it to be any different. And anytime I think that what's occurring in my life should be different than it is, I know that I'm caught up in eye-making. I'm back into ignorance of Four Noble Truths. Remaining mindful in this way, they examine this quality of mindfulness. We look at it. We understand it. We become familiar with it. I've said this a few times. The Tibetan word for meditation, not that we practice Tibetan Buddhism, the Tibetan word for meditation is gom, G-O-M. It means to become familiar with your own mind. With discernment or right view, they develop understanding of this quality of mindfulness. When one remains mindful in this way, examining and developing understanding of this quality of mindfulness with discernment, meaning the right framework, the right view, then mindfulness of certain qualities as a factor for awakening arises. In order to understand that we're developing the right practice, we have to engage in the right practice, or we'll just be distracting ourselves. I spent many, many years in most of the different forms of modern Buddhism getting more frustrated, more confused, and more distracted by my Buddhist practice, because I wasn't practicing something that an awakened human being taught that develops concentration and refined mindfulness of the Eightfold Path. In fact, it was never mentioned that way. This is how right mindfulness is established as a factor, a quality of awakening. When one examines and comes to a comprehension of mindfulness as a factor of awakening, then, with discernment, with right view, investigation of the Dhamma arises. So there's no investigation of the Dhamma unless we've established concentration and the beginning of refined mindfulness, meaning knowing what we're supposed to hold in mind, the Eightfold Path. When investigation of the Dhamma arises in one who examines and comes to a comprehension of that quality with discernment, then investigation of the Dhamma arising as a factor for awakening becomes aroused. It's up to us to do it. In other words, the Buddha didn't set himself up as a savior. He didn't teach a salvific religion. He simply taught a method for each and every human being who was interested to develop it themselves. And it's the only way it can be developed. Awakening through the Buddha's Dhamma cannot be bestowed by outside forces or merit or rites and rituals or appeasing to gods or goddesses, any of that. And you know, we've been through this enough. The Buddha said anytime your mind goes there, grasping after some type of external grace, you're lost. You're lost in ignorance. Recognize it. It's not wrong. It's not right. Recognize it and come back to where you are. Bring your breath back into your body. Bring your mind back into your body, because that's where the Dhamma resides. You've heard me say it over and over again. Each moment holds the potential for awakening, but we have to be in that moment for the potential to be realized. And how do we do that? How do we enter into this moment? How do I finally reunite my mind into my body? With jhana practice. And it keeps it there. In the Eightfold Path is the way to keep it there forever. This is how investigation of the Dhamma is established as a factor or a quality of awakening. When one who examines and comes to a comprehension of investigation of the Dhamma arising as a factor for awakening with right view, persevering effort arises, meaning once we understand what we're doing and we realize even the smallest of benefits, then we have generated within ourselves that joyful enthusiasm, the rapture to continue. It's our own motivation to do it. It's not because we think we should do it or it's the right thing to do or that crazy old bald guy keeps telling us what we should do. We do it because we're realizing the benefits. And that's how an authentic Dhamma practice is developed. Nothing, we had a very good discussion with Thad, and I didn't mean to put this on him. I know he didn't mean it this way, but nothing is taken on faith. We take to the Dhamma with conviction because we understand what it develops. When persevering effort arises in one who examines, analyzes, and comes to a comprehension of that quality with discernment, then persevering effort arising as a factor of awakening becomes aroused. This is how persevering effort is established as a factor or a quality of awakening. In other words, we have to fairly early in our Dhamma practice it correctly, because practicing it correctly will give us the understanding of the benefits that are arising. And the recognition that of those benefits is important to give us the wherewithal to simply continue with our Dhamma practice. Excuse me. Is that clear what I just said? Is anybody confused by it or question it? Because that really is the essence of right effort. To have the conviction that it works and to understand that the more that I do this, the more that I will become like Buddha. Hence the name of the book. Becoming Buddha means, and becoming Buddha, becoming awakened means just that. We are developing the same path that the Buddha used for his own awakening and left us to do the same. When one whose persevering effort arises, joyful engagement with the Dhamma arises. When joyful engagement with the Dhamma arises in one whose persistence is aroused, then joyful engagement with the Dhamma as a factor of awakening becomes aroused. Joyful engagement with the Dhamma. We don't plod along with some kind of grim, or we talked a little bit about Stoicism, or some stoic kind of view. We do it with a very gentle touch, but we are aroused by our own joyful engagement and acknowledgement of the benefits of Dhamma practice. This is how joyful engagement with the Dhamma is established as a factor of awakening. It's something we do directly. In other words, there's nothing useful in the Dhamma that is fabricated. And a fabricated understanding can be experienced and made to feel like real, like it's a real experience. But we know that if it's fabricated, it's simply feeding a self-referential viewpoint. If it's rooted in concentration and framed by the refined mindfulness of the Eightfold Path, then it's an actual real experience of the Dhamma. And for some of us, in the beginning, it might just be for a few moments. But everyone here, save for Kate, only because this is her first class, she'll talk about this next class, has talked about that, recognizing the Dhamma working in your life, recognizing these 7 factors of awakening, recognizing deepening calm, recognizing more peaceful relationships between yourself and the people and events of the world. And that's true, isn't it? Would every one of you say that?
Yeah. Yes. And what you find is a genuine happiness and joyfulness, and not a manufactured, like, this is a feel-good practice. It's not. It's an understanding practice. So it's a true, genuine feeling.
Yeah.
And that's what's special about it.
Wow, thank you. Yeah, the Dhamma practice is not about feeling good. It's being at peace with whatever feeling I have. The Dhamma practice is not about feeling good. It's about impersonally feeling what occurs. That's an alive human being. To be able to feel and cognize what's occurring without any self-reference, without the need for it to be any different or to want more of the same. The essence of the Dhamma practice. And we're all developing that. It's remarkable. It really is. This sutta, those of you that didn't hear the beginning, this sutta begins with the Buddha holding out accomplished members of the original sangha and saying, people that do this, a sangha that is able to do this, is rare and unique in the world. Even during the Buddha's time, he stated that. And I can tell you 2,600 years later, with a lot of years in modern Buddhism, what is going on here, because of all of you, not because you have the world's greatest teacher, although I've been acknowledged that way now. Watch out. This is rare and unique in the world. And each and every one of you is developing the same Dhamma that an awakened human being taught 2,600 years ago in the same way. These are all the things that we're doing. When one is joyfully engaged with the Dhamma, the body grows calm and the mind grows calm. When the body and mind of a Dhamma practitioner is joyfully engaged with the Dhamma, then tranquility as a factor of awakening arises. This is how tranquility is established as a factor of awakening. Again, it's not something, tranquility is not bestowed on me because I've done this long enough, or I've meditated for hours and hours and hours and hours at a sesshin, torturing myself. This is developed through an authentic Dhamma practice. And it's done in a very gentle, though not always easy way. When one who is tranquil, the mind and body calm, the mind develops concentration. When the mind of one who is tranquil and well concentrated, then concentration as a factor of awakening arises. Do you see how incredibly practical this teaching is? The Buddha is just saying, if you do this, these are going to be the results. And they are. This is how concentration is established as a factor or a quality of awakening. When one whose concentration is established, equanimity arises. When equanimity arises, then equanimity as a factor for awakening also arises. This is how equanimity is established as a factor of awakening. I'm going to read through this, but I'm going to try to without too much commentary. But if you get confused, just please holler out, because I want to be able to get through it tonight and not be here till 11. Furthermore, one remains mindful of the quality of mind in reference to Four Noble Truths. The Buddha is saying, as part of our Dhamma practice, we're able to hold in mind, meaning not in a school-like setting. Let me go reference this. We develop a profound understanding of Four Noble Truths as our way of looking at ourselves in relation to the world. Furthermore, one remains mindful of the quality of mind in reference to the Four Noble Truths. Remain mindful of knowing that, holding in mind. This is stress, meaning we understand the nature of stress. Know the origination of stress, craving for and clinging to fabricated views, ignorant of Four Noble Truths. This is the cessation of stress. The Buddha is teaching us that you will have a direct experience of the cessation of stress. And if you don't, you simply haven't gotten there yet. That's all. And then mindfulness of the fact that it is the Eightfold Path that leads to the cessation of stress. The Buddha continues, in this way, one remains mindful of the quality of mind free of distraction internally and externally. One remains mindful of the phenomena of the origination of qualities of mind and their arising and passing away. There is the knowledge of the maintenance of qualities of mind and their recollection. That simply means that we have now established a framework of the Eightfold Path, and we know it. We have knowledge of it. The Buddha is teaching that in very, very subtle ways. We know what the hell we're doing. We're not taking anything on faith or as an abstract teaching. Everything we learn through the Dhamma is experienced directly within the Dhamma and within ourselves. This is how one remains mindful of the 7 factors of awakening in and of themselves. The Buddha continues, I came to direct knowledge. He's talking about himself. Remember the Nagara Sutta. I came to direct knowledge of fabrications, direct knowledge of the origination of fabrications, direct knowledge of the cessation of fabrications, and direct knowledge of the Eightfold Path leading to the cessation of fabrications. The Buddha is making a declaration of of right view and what he went through as an example that he's saying, I'm a human being just like you. This is what I did. If I did it, you can do it. And again, remember the Nagara Sutta where the Buddha talks about getting caught up in that feedback loop in his own mind and how he was able to extricate himself through direct mindful experience of being present with what was going on within his mind. Not outside in the world, within his own mind. He became familiar with the workings of his own mind and the nature of ignorance within himself. Remember when he awakened and declared, there is nothing further within me to provoke further ignorance, which means that he had recognized and abandoned everything that was ignorant of Four Noble Truths, and then lived the last 45 years as an awakened human being at peace with the world and at peace with himself, no matter what was occurring. And the Buddha's time, there's people today that still say, well, the Four Noble Truths are archaic. He lived in a different time. During the Buddha's lifetime, there was just as much conflict in the world right around him as there is today. There was nothing different. And his Dhamma was just as applicable then as it is today. Now, here's promises from the Buddha. If anyone develops these four foundations of mindfulness in this same manner, meaning as he taught it, for 7 years, one could expect either complete understanding here and now, or if there is any clinging and maintaining after those seven years, in this present lifetime. For the first 20 years of my modern Buddhist practice, I was always told, there's not one teacher that I came across, and I studied with some of the most well-known and some of the most and wonderful, I'm not putting any of them down. Not one ever acknowledged that I could awaken in this lifetime. Every single one said it's an impossible task, but go ahead and do it. For anybody, it's going to take eons and eons, but go ahead. What could be more cruel than to tell someone that? And misleading. And rooted in ignorance. The Buddha taught a Dhamma for human beings to awaken in this lifetime and in this present moment. It's the only way it could work. Then the Buddha continues, let alone 7 years, if anyone perfectly, I put that word in perfectly, my little bit of comment, if anyone perfectly develops these four foundations of mindfulness in this manner for 6 or 5 or 4 or 3 or 2 or 1 year, for 6 months, for 3 months, for 1 month, for 2 weeks, for 7 days, one could expect either complete understanding here and now, or if there's any clinging and maintaining remaining, we talked a little bit about this on the way down, in this present lifetime. We've gone through a lot of suttas where we can still feel the Buddha's encouragement from 2,600 years ago. There's probably nothing more encouraging than that, isn't there? Here is this awakened human being, the first guy that figured this all out. He's saying, you can do it. It's not that hard. Apply yourself to it. That you engage in right effort, and in 7 or 6 or 5 or 3 or 4, or maybe in just a couple of weeks, we can awaken. What's the message? You just have to do it. Just have to continue. And he's using the group of monks that he held out was about 35 or 40. It wasn't just 1 or 2. It wasn't just Sariputta and Moggallana. It was a large portion of that, portion is probably not the right word, of the original sangha that had awakened. Friends, this is the direct path for the purification of all beings, for the cessation of sorrow and regret, for the disappearance of pain and distress, for establishing the right method of practice, and for complete unbinding. In other words, these four foundations of mindfulness. He concludes, that's not the end of the sutta, but he concludes that powerful statement by pointing us right back to the necessity for right meditation, for jhana meditation. When one is mindful of the arising and the passing away of all internal and external phenomena, their mind and body united, their quality of mind established in concentration and equanimity, the development of four foundations of mindfulness then brings the 7 factors of awakening to their culmination. Excuse me. This is how the 4 foundations of mindfulness are appropriately developed so as to bring the 7 factors of awakening to their useful culmination. This next section is called Clear Knowing and Release. The Buddha is going to describe exactly what a Dhamma practice looks like, and so that there's no confusion or ambiguity in our own minds. This is it. And how are the 7 factors of awakening appropriately developed so as to bring right understanding or right view and release from clinging to wrong or ignorant views to their culmination? When one develops mindfulness in this same manner, as a factor of awakening, mindfulness is established on seclusion, established on dispassion, established on cessation, and established in relinquishment of clinging to ignorant views. Another clear description of what this is about. Develop mindfulness in this manner as a factor for awakening. Mindfulness is established in seclusion, jhana practice, established on dispassion, understanding myself in relation to the world, and established on, the Dhamma practice is itself established on the fact that it works, on cessation. That's Dhamma practice. If you haven't gotten there yet, it simply means you need more Dhamma practice. It doesn't mean that it doesn't work. But it is, the Dhamma is fully realized from the culmination of the practice itself. In other words, you can't know it until you get there. But when you know it, the Buddha says over and over again and emphasizes the fact to look out for it, pay attention, because this is what's occurring. It's what this whole sutta is about, by the way. This is what's occurring in an authentic Dhamma practice. And so we don't even have to guess at it. It's either there or it's not. It's either present or it's not. And if it's not, take to your cushion, take to the Dhamma teachings himself, continue your participation in a rare and unique sangha, and in a few weeks, a few months, a few years, you will awaken in this lifetime. Excuse me. They develop investigation of the Dhamma as a factor for awakening. Excuse me. They develop persistence as a factor of awakening. You got to keep doing it. They develop joyful engagement as a factor for awakening. I can tell you now, it wasn't always the case, that my engagement with the Dhamma is always joyful now. But when I was practicing fabricated dharmas, I was even though I was enjoying the familial associations I had developed in different monasteries and temples around the country, there was no joyful engagement. Why? I used to blame myself. There was no joyful engagement because there's nothing to joyfully engage with. It was all fabrication. Human beings cannot engage with fabrications. They can get distracted by them, but that's the essence of a fabricated view, a mind ignorant of Four Noble Truths, isn't it? We get enthralled with our fabrications.
And you can't joyfully engage in something that doesn't work.
You can't, and you can kid yourself in doing it, mostly by association. Everybody else I know is doing it. Or look at this large group. I used to sit with a group of 150 people at least once a month, usually 2 or 3 times a month on Sunday. And it was a wonderful group of people. We had it, and they had a meal afterwards. And we got together, we socialized, made friends. But there was no joyful engagement. The joyful engagement was in the social aspects of the setting rather than what they had to teach. And so even the social aspect became a very useful distraction to someone who didn't want to actually awaken, because I feel, look at all my friends, they're all doing this. I'm putting in the effort. I'm driving 2 hours each way to sit with this group. I'm trying to incorporate what they're doing. If it's not working, it must be me. Well, it wasn't. I was teaching something that could not be joyfully engaged in. The Buddha continues, they develop tranquility as a factor for awakening. They develop concentration as a factor of awakening. They develop equanimity as a factor of awakening. These 7 factors of awakening are dependent on seclusion, dependent on dispassion, and dependent on cessation. These 7 factors of awakening, when fully developed, results in relinquishment of all views rooted in ignorance of Four Noble Truths. This is how the 7 factors for awakening are appropriately developed so as to bring right understanding or right view and release from clinging to ignorant views to their culmination. This is what the Buddha said. Gratified, the monks were delighted in the Buddha's words. That's the end of this great sutta. So if we're ever confused about a Dhamma practice or our place in the Buddhist world, this is a great sutta to read and listen to over and over again, because it reinforces what we should do and also reinforces things that would be distracting to our awakening. It also gives us great encouragement, doesn't it? These very same teachings that worked 2,600 years ago are still present here today and in this room tonight. Again, that's one of the most remarkable things in my lifetime, that these teachings have persevered and that I'm able to understand them. Not that I have any special quality of mind. I'm just a human being. But just as the Buddha taught, any human being can develop this Dhamma as long as we take to it in the way that it's presented. If we try to adapt, accommodate, or embellish it, even in the smallest way, we lose the Dhamma. And there's no reason to do so, is there? It's a complete practice. The Buddha taught, as he characterized it, this is a practice that is good in the beginning, in the middle, and in the end. It means that in the beginning, it's easily accessible. Anybody can develop it. In the middle means that it provides complete direction, and it's good in the end because it actually provides what it promises, awakening. In the beginning, in the middle, and in the end. So let's go around the room a little bit. I'm going to start with Frank and Eric and go that way because sometimes Frank has to get going back down to Philly. Frank, how are you tonight?
It's good. How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for asking.
Good to be here. And Happy New Year to everyone. I haven't had the chance to be with the sangha, but I listened to the tapes and I feel connected with everyone. Appreciate everyone's comments. And tonight, I usually like to read along with you, and I have to figure out what's going on with the email, but I can only get half of the page. Even if I turn it sideways, I have to figure out what's up with it.
I'll fix it. Sorry.
No problem. I understood it, and I listened to Saturday on the way up, and I don't. All I can say is I have a lot of practice to recognize the I making and the self-referential views. Pretty much most of my conscious day interacting with the world, and now I'm at the point where I have the choice. I have a choice.
Yeah.
In the way that I think, and it's in the choice that causes the non-reaction, the not taking it personal, like David said, and that is the cessation of suffering for me. It's using the four foundations of mindfulness, I can recognize the thoughts as they're arising, the feelings as they're arising. I can see where they're going. I could get a little hint, the flavor of the ill will, the lower fetters, and I'm like, nah, I don't want to go there. I'm I making. This is all self-referential, and have the choice not to go there and live my life free of that attachment, and it feels pretty awesome. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. What you're describing is the Buddha described in the Vipassana Sutta. You gain the ability to think what you want to think, when you want to think it, when it's appropriate, whatever thought is. Isn't that remarkable? So, Eric, good to see you tonight.
Good to see you too. It's good to be here. Yeah, I'm just glad to be here. It's good to get back to some normalcy into the new year.
Glad you're here, Eric. Good to see you. Michael, how are you tonight?
Hi, John. I'm doing good, thanks.
Good.
I was listening to you, Frank, and it just seems like, I think this applies to basically everyone in here, the things that Frank was saying there, in relation to recognizing that the conflict that we come across throughout our days. And obviously, less conflict we have, or the more we can basically abandon it, get away from it,
Yep.
more, and that'll create less discord in our minds, and peace will prevail.
Yep.
I just wanted to also mention the whole idea of what the Buddha was saying about, in 7 years this could happen, and I don't know, 2 weeks, 7 days, whatever time frame it happens is really not a concern.
It's not?
It's not a concern if we're thinking along those lines about after we read something like that, not in the proper context, we could actually be somewhere else besides being here, living in the present moment. Okay? As we live the Dhamma, understand it more, we become one with it, and whatever occurs from that it'll occur when it occurs. So it's just not something to be conscious of on a daily basis or even every moment. It just happens when it happens.
Thank you. Very profound. If we're grasping after awakening, we're just creating more conflict in our minds. But and this is another reason why this is such an important sutta, and many of them are, that encourage us to just take to the Dhamma. And the culmination is a given. And you mentioned something else, conflict, just to say it, that if we're really concerned about ending conflict in the world, the only way to do it is to first end conflict within ourselves. And that's what the Dhamma does. Thank you. Julia, good to see you.
Good to see you, John. I'm like thrown off because I'm not the last one. I'm at a loss. This is a very comprehensive sutta, but I like how the Buddha says that it's a path of purification of all beings, and that it's a cessation of any stress, regret, sorrow. It's cessation of all these things, and that he says that you accomplish it in this lifetime. To me, that's very impressive when he said that.
Yeah.
Because as you say, I've also have practiced other methods, and I've also been told, not in this lifetime, don't expect it. Maybe not even in next lifetime, and the time after that. And so it's like, wow, what am I doing this for?
Yeah.
So this at least gives you some hope.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. Bonnie, good to see you tonight.
Good to see you too. Thank you for being here and just practicing and benefiting from the practice and taking up with silence.
Good to see you again. Hi, Liz. Happy New Year.
John, Happy New Year. It's really good to be here. And like Eric said, to kind of get back into a routine. I just every day wake up and hit the reset button and try to remain focused. At times it can be pretty difficult, but I'm just grateful that I have everyone in this room to listen to and be with once a week, and it's all good.
It is. Thank you. Hi, Andrew.
I will pass that.
Glad you're here. Kate, how are you? How was your first session with us?
Absorbing.
Not too confusing?
No, because I don't know anything, so I can't be confused.
Good. That's a great answer. I got to remember that. Do you mind if I make a recording of what you just said and just play it? I don't know nothing, so there's nothing to confuse me. That is the essence of the Buddha's Dhamma. It is. Thank you. How was your meditation? It was simple and straightforward?
Oh yeah, very simple. My mind is a very busy place.
Yeah, yeah.
It's early on.
Yeah, and the method works, doesn't it, folks? Mm-hmm. There's on the website, there's a card over there too. If you becoming-buddha.com, there's 5 to 45-minute recordings of this guided jhana meditation, and there's all the information you need. There's 300 or 400 articles, 600 talks, 500 videos. There's a lot. But if you start on the front page with the welcome drop down, it'll start you pointed in the right direction. So I hope you join us again. Welcome to our sangha.
Thank you.
Hello, Karen. Good to see you.
I'll be back. I'm going to respectfully observe noble silence.
I'm glad you're here. Kate, good evening.
Hi, good to see you.
Good to see you.
So we're all talking, like, as we come to the end of this study, about sort of the result that this has had on our lives.
Yes, I'd love to hear it.
It affects sort of the way we think. And for me, like, when I first started coming, which was about a year ago now, actually, I wasn't sure if it was going to work. I thought that my mind was too busy of a place for this to work. But then as I kept just kind of coming here and letting it all absorb and just letting it all sink in, you kind of see in like little moments throughout your life that just your reactions are a little bit different than they were before. It's very subtle. Probably other people don't see it, but it's a subtle shift, but it's definitely there. And for me, it's just amounted to like a shift in perception that's really important and has helped so much. It's like always seeing things here, and then you just kind of go like that. So yeah, that's the effect I've seen it have so far. And I still have a lot of work to do, obviously, but there's just certain things that come up now that normally I would have flipped my lid over, and I kind of don't anymore, or at least not as much as I did before.
Thank you, Kate. You don't lose your mind anymore. Isn't that great? Isn't that
Not
worth it? Well, yeah, but that's worth the price of admission, isn't it? I mean, it really is. I didn't know what was wrong with me most of my life until I realized what was wrong with me is I lost my mind. And now I had a friend of mine who was a Jesuit. I just got to tell a quick story. I used to visit him about once a month up at a Catholic monastery up in Newton, New Jersey. That's no longer there. He was just a great guy who had, I don't know if you can use this phrase anymore, he had 9 nervous breakdowns. I think they call it something different now. It's probably politically incorrect, but and he was one of the most wonderful guys I've ever met. We had these great conversations about the meaning of God and all that stuff. And obviously that's not something I'm all that interested in now. But there's 2 things that he said. One was, it's okay to lose your mind. You just get another one. Isn't that great? And then he said, and this is even more important than that, he said, never ask why. He said, if you ask why, it's because you don't want to know and you're stuck in something. Let it go. And he had no idea about Buddhism, at least as far as I know. He said, when you're asking why, you're no longer here. I'm pretty good. Anyway, yeah, he was a great guy. Tim, good to see you tonight.
Hello, yes, hello everybody. It almost reads a little bit in the same structure as dependent origination,
In that way.
because those factors are, I might be wrong here, they seem like they're dependent on each other.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And the thing that struck me, hit me hard, was the perseverance, because the quality, and I think that was your addition as a quality.
Yeah.
That's the hard work. That's the rubber to the road.
Yeah.
To keep lifting yourself back up and to recognizing those things. And to what Matt said is having that mindfulness, not being mindful of everything that comes in, but having the mind being able to be presently mindful.
Yeah.
And I think that one part relates to or goes back to the 4th level of jhana practice, where you get to the tranquility, the joyful, the calm.
Yep.
And that's like the payoff, really. I mean, that's that feeling I think Frank was telling you during the day, where those the entanglements of your life, they're unfolding in front of you at that present moment, and you're able to apply these things and be able to recognize and go forward. And even when we fall down with it, and I think we all do, I know I do, having the structure to start again at the next moment is definitely a good thing to have. Okay. So I really enjoyed that part of that sutta.
Yeah. Thank you, Tim. And you really nailed it. It is very similar to dependent origination in that way, and in its directness, and how developing the Dhamma, what you said it, and what the Buddha is saying here, developing the Dhamma is done by developing the Dhamma. It sounds crazy to say it, but it can't be any other way. And that persistence. And Kate, too, when you were talking, you described kshanti, patient forbearance, or ongoing persistence in your Dhamma practice. You didn't lose it along the way. You kept coming, and you, as you said, you experienced the results of that persistence. So that's how it's done. Good. It's a great example. Your example is an example to all of us, just like the sutta is, if you think about that. And we're doing it for ourselves. It's another reason why I talk about how incredible this sangha is, because we do this for ourselves. We imbue each other in this joyful engagement because we talk about the benefits of it. We don't come here and talk about all the things that drive people crazy, or we don't grasp after things that are unattainable by human beings. It's just simply practical. And we have united our minds into our body. Now we just got to keep it there. Thank you, Tim. Hello, Mary.
Hello, John. Hello, everybody. I have a cold, so I will take normal steps.
Oh, I'm glad you're here. David, good to see you.
John, I just want to thank you for your effort. This was a huge undertaking, 35, 36 weeks.
It was something.
And I think it's deepened all of our practices and our understanding and my appreciation for this sangha. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for saying that. It was, it really has been remarkable. I think almost everybody would say that. From my perspective, I think it's at least one of the most important structured studies I've ever come across. And what it does, it will be a book, I think, if I live long enough to get it done. But even when I remember talking to Matt about this, after the last retreat, after the last spring's retreat, I got the idea that we should spend some time really looking at what dukkha means. What does it feel like to experience dukkha? But as I started writing it out and preparing to teach that, I realized what I'm looking at is the essence of the Buddha's Dhamma, and it has to do with the 3 marks of existence, understanding the nature of self in relation to the world. And it grew from that. It grew. My first thought was, oh, this is probably going to be a 12-week, 20 what would that be? But it grew into this, and it really has been remarkable. And you've all stayed with it. That's the other thing that shows me as a teacher that I did something right. And again, that's important. As a teacher, I want to know that I'm actually teaching something. I don't care for people to come here and put money in the basket and walk out with nothing. That, to me, again, that's the cruel thing to do. It's important for me to know that it's working, and I see it working in each and every one of you. That is remarkable. It is. It works still. And you're all doing it. You've all put that right effort and persistence to develop it within yourself. It's notable. Matt, good to see you.
Good to see you, John. Good to see everybody. Happy New Year to all. Yeah, just to piggyback on what David said, I'm really, really grateful for you and the work that you put into this. We just got done a whole series on the 3 marks, and then we started this Vipassana Introspective Insight series. And, the Buddha didn't teach awakening. The Buddha didn't teach enlightenment. The Buddha taught the understanding of suffering and the cessation of suffering, and that's it.
Yep.
And this course, this structured study of Vipassana Introspective Insight, helped me a lot understand where I suffer, how I suffer, and the cessation of that process. So thank you, Venerable Sir.
Thank you, Matt. Just because there'd be no Dhamma here without all of you. I really mean that. I couldn't imagine. I say this at retreats too, but I couldn't imagine this sangha without each and every one of you being a part of it, including you, Kate. And it has to be acknowledged that there be no Cross River Meditation Center in a practical way without Matt Branham. It's his space. But even more important is the support and the encouragement and just the talks that we've had over the past 7 years. I don't know how long it's been. That has a lot to do with what's going on here too. So thank you, Matt. You could all thank him. Thank you, Matt. He always deserves a lot of acknowledgement. Lorna, good to see you.
Well, thank you for your 32 weeks and whatever everybody else said. I think my favorite part of this sutta was actually in the first part, when we were asked to look at when we meditate to be sensitive and they had a whole list of,
Yep.
sensitive to the breath and sensitive. When you read that, you can't read it without being moved. You can feel how sensitive he was to pick up on the sensitivity that is necessary to hold in mind when you meditate. So that of this sutra, I think that was probably what I got out of this sutra the most.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the beginning portion of that, the Buddha goes through a rather long explanation of how to breathe during meditation. But it all comes down to however you find your breath, that's how you breathe. Because anything else, trying to manipulate your breath, which is very common today, is an act of eye-making, isn't it? However my breath is how my breath is in this moment. That's all I need. My breath is my anchor to what's occurring within me. If I start manipulating it, again, I'm fabricating my own experience, just my breath. Why do anything with it except acknowledge it? Thank you. Hello, Ram.
John, great ending of the series.
Yeah.
I was just reflecting on when we were starting to set this up. One of my things was that I felt there was a lot of real gaps in my understanding. I was just struggling with a lot of concepts, and boy, a lot of that has been answered in this series. And even this sutta here, which used to look like a mountain to me, just to go through, and now it's like, yeah, this is the bones of the Dhamma.
Yep.
This is it. And everything flows naturally from one place to another. Yeah. So, thank you for teaching all this.
You're welcome, and thank you all for staying with it. When I first mentioned that it was going to be a 32-week class, what'd you think? there was a little joyful engagement at that point. Well, let's see what Jane has to say. Jane, how are you tonight?
I'm fine, John. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
I have found much peace in my Dhamma practice, and it wasn't like just flipping a switch. I mean, it was a very gradual process. I noticed at first I had to do a lot of directing. This is not me, this is not mine, and in different areas of my life. And then more recently, I've noticed that I'll be in a situation and it feels different than it did before. And I'll become aware that that's because I'm present in the situation. And so it's been wonderful.
It has.
So it's evolving, I guess is what I'm saying. It's fluid.
Yeah. You got a big head start on your Dhamma practice by coming to that retreat early on, didn't you?
I think so.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad you joined us tonight. Helen, how are you? Helen! Hey, do you want me to unmute you? If I can. Yeah. Hi, Helen. Helen, say hello. Wait a minute. There's a problem there, Helen. I can't unmute your mic, but so I'm going to move on to Thad. Glad you joined us tonight, Helen. Thad, how are you?
Oh, thank you, John. I'm fine. I just, as a relative newcomer to the sangha, I'm sitting listening to everybody commenting and talking, and I'm learning as much from the comments of the other members as I am from the Dhamma talk. Yep. And that's, that place you drove 2.5 hours to, I think you and I think I've been there too, quite often. And, you did get the conversation after the meals, but this, I'm learning as much from the comments as I am from the Dhamma here. That's, and of course, you presenting the Buddha to us. So this is quite a unique sangha, and I appreciate you and thank you all very much. Thank you for being
here. Thank you, Thad. Again, that is is referencing what the Buddha said. This is rare and unique in the world, and it works. You know, it really is remarkable. We should have joyful engagement for each other and for what's going on here, and that the Buddha's Dhamma is still extant here in the world today. It was a wonderful 30. I don't remember how many classes. I'll add it up. Probably 34, 35 classes in total, and all of you staying with it it's an inspiration to me, but it's an inspiration to me to see how well the Dhamma still works 2,600 years ago. That's the most remarkable thing. It was one thing to be able to develop this understanding within myself and feel the benefits of it, and be kind of happy just going along, being maybe a semi-awakened human being. I don't know. You can't really qualify that far along. But when I started teaching it, that brought another level of understanding. And I think what Dad is referring to, and I don't mean to put words in his mouth, is we are now all each other's teachers, aren't we? And I mean, isn't that, again, I learned so much from all of you. It is just remarkable. There's so much wisdom in a human life that is just present with that life. And that's where all this wisdom flows from each other here. It's remarkable. So that's the end of this study. We're going to start another one on Saturday. Why not? Might as well keep going. I think you'll all find, most of you have been through the Truth of Happiness 1, 2, 3, 4 times. We're going to do it slightly different, but I also think it's going to seem even a more gentle Dhamma this time through, because you have a broader understanding. So this Saturday we're going to begin, but I'm going to teach from the Dhammapada, the first chapter on Saturday, the second chapter on Tuesday. And we'll just start the practice, meaning that I will tell you what to read, which is the preface, the introduction in the first chapter on Jhana meditation. I know the book still says Shamatha Vipassana, but I haven't gotten around to revising it. And then next Saturday, I'll teach it, an overview of what that is, and we'll have a discussion based on that. I'd like this to have more of a group discussion on what you're learning rather than me just reading the chapters, etc. So I think that's how it's going to go. And the same thing, the same class will be on Tuesday, and we'll do the same thing with that, so you know what's going on. All right.
Hey, John.
Yes. Wait 1 second. Frank, good to see you. I'll see you soon, I hope.
Next week.
Oh, great. Take care, Eric. Yes, Helen, I'm sorry.
That's okay. My keyboard wasn't working, but I got my mouse, so now I'm here. I just wanted to share a really special experience I had today as a result of being a part of this sangha. I have a client who is 99 years old.
Wow.
And I visit with her once a month. And she was talking about how she had been to the doctors and, she wasn't feeling great, but as far as the doctor could tell, she was in perfect health. And so I talked to her for a while, and she said, I'm just not happy. And I said, well, you've had to give up a lot of things, and things are changing. But hey, you've got your health. And she said, well, one thing that's changed is when I try to fall asleep at night, all of these thoughts fill my head. And so I was able to draw from the Dhamma practice to talk to her about the experience of being out of your mind and bringing it back, about using your breath. She asked me what I do, and I said, I kept it very simple. I said, I just concentrate on my breathing, and her eyes lit up, and she said, I used to do that. Is that what you do? And I said, yes, it's just very simple. Your breath is neutral. It's always there. And so she was just like delighted that there was this simple thing that she could do that could maybe calm her mind and hopefully get her back to happy.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you, Helen. That's true engaged Buddhism. That's what engaged Buddhism is, or should be. Is just that. Is she around here? Can you bring her to class one day?
She's in Bernardsville, and she doesn't get out too much anymore, unfortunately. But I will continue to visit with her and, share my experience as she seeks it.
That's outstanding, Helen. Thank you for telling us about that tonight. So, the Dhamma at work, Michael.
Just one question.
Sure.
Would you ever, would you consider doing this whole lesson again like this?
Oh, sure. Sure. I mean, I won't do it for another year at least. But the next retreat, and maybe a few more retreats, are going to be based on this study. It's not, obviously, it's not going to be 32 talks long. There'll be 8 talks on the next retreat taken from this study. So I hope you can, and I think it's going to be a remarkable, I'm speculating a bit, but it's going to be a remarkable retreat coming up. The information's on the website. Just because we're talking about it, if you know you're going, the earlier you sign up, the better. I do prefer now, I always had it in there that I prefer being paid for the room by check or by cash. It's going to sound a little strange, but I prefer it to be through PayPal. And the reason is that my mailbox is more than a quarter mile away from my house and I can't see it. So it's better that way. So
It's an excuse to take the dog.
I don't walk anymore either. Open the back door. Okay, we'll finish as we always do with metta. A moment. And these are the Buddha's words on metta from the Karaniya Metta Sutta. So again, just take a moment to become mindful of your in-breath and your out-breath. The Buddha's words. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud or demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings. Radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will. Whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Thank you all for a wonderful class tonight. Peace. And just one more thing about the next structured study. I'm putting up the Truth of Happiness book. I'm putting it on the website, broken down by chapters. There'll be a link in Thursday's email to show you that, just so you know that it's on the website. But I'll also have copies available here, and they're available Kindle and paperback format on Amazon too. So thank you all. Have a good evening. Matt, would you do me a favor? Would you get a copy of the Truth of Happiness and give it to Karen? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night, John.
Hi, John.
You need next Saturday.
Good night, Mary. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Good night.
Oh yeah, I do, huh?